Samanta Chakravalesu Patra Gachantu Tesana Saddhamang Munirajas Sunantu Shakramuktatam Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. The topic is Yani Bhutani Samagatani Bhumani Vaya Niva Antalikhe Tathagatam Deva Manusha Pujitam Buddhang Namasama Swati Hotu Dhammang Namasama Swati Hotu Sanghang Namasama Swati Hotu. You may wonder why I started with the last verses of the Ratana Sutta. You expected that I would start with the first verse. But I thought it's best that I start with the last three verses because it has some significance. So before I start, I think I should make some introductory remarks. I am very happy to be here, to be invited to talk on this particular subject of the Ratana Sutta, the jewel, the Sutta Discourse on the three jewels. And recently there has been a series of discourses on this. There was the president herself, she spoke on the Karanimit Sutta. And I think there was a discussion on the Dachaka Sutta. And these are important because these suttas are found in the Mahapiritputta, which we all know about that. We revere it as the Piruvana Putvase. And it's available at least in many of the Buddhist homes here and also abroad. And so it's very necessary, I think we should familiarize ourselves with the discourses. And these two, the Ratana Sutta and the Karanimit Sutta that were discussed, are very special because they form the part of the Mahapiritva, and which we discussed some time back. I think in September last year, we had a discussion on the Mahapiritputta, I think. So this is important because of that. And then when I discussed and mentioned about the Ratana Sutta, then in that discussion, I ended by saying, to understand fully the Ratana Sutta, it is necessary to get a good knowledge of the Dhamma. And so that's extremely important. But the important thing, and if anyone is interested in that, but in that discourse, it's always possible to register with the president, and it's been printed in Buddhism Practice number 5, and anybody could have it. There are still copies available, and only please register yourself with the president of the organization, Service of the Buddha, and it'll be, you can have them. So the importance of this, when I studied this particular sutta, I went through many renditions or many translations, because our knowledge of Pali is not up to the mark, in the sense we are not scholars of Pali scholars, but to a large extent, we depend on translations. And so I just, because of the nature of the type of work that we do in service of the Buddha, when we depend on translation, there are certain limitations. So there is something there because the translation, there are variances. Now, when I prepared for this particular talk on the Ratana Sutta, I consulted the translations of Venerable Bodhi, then Venerable Piyadasi, then Sutta Central, then there is also the translations by the Mahamevna, I think that group, and also there's translation, the Sinhala, there's the Buddha Jayanta series, the translations are there, the Sinhala. So because it's not as getting from translation is different from knowing the origin, the original. The thing is, the Ratana Sutta is a very particular sutta, and then we should know what was in the mind of the Buddha. In all the discourses, the same thing. What was it that he said? So one thing that is which we know is that there is only one flavor in Dhamma, the flavor of liberation. And the Buddha, for the 45 years, he explained the Dhamma with one purpose, to make the four, the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasaka, Upasaka, the four segments of the Buddhist society, for them to understand and liberate themselves. It's not for scholasticism. Now what has happened is there are so many scholars. There are the Buddhist scholars, they learn, and you get PhD, graduation, everything. That's also very mundane. But the more important thing, when you think of it, the final goal, why the Buddha expressed all this, for 45 years, he explained the Dhamma, is for the liberation of people. And that's something that we have to be very careful. Now, I just, to give an example of this, I'll say that one example of the variances there in these translations, I noted that there are variances. It's not the same translation. Now, all these in the sutta, said after the third sutta, fourth onwards, the ending is etena satchena suati hotu. Etena satchena suati hotu. That's how it is. The ending, the last words. Now, these words, etena satchena suati hotu, has been translated in 4 different ways. Now, I found that one say, by this truth, may there be safety. That's one translation. I'm not going to say whose, but the thing is, one translation was, by this truth, may there be safety. Suatti hotu, safety. Then there was another translation, say, by this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. Now, happiness is slightly different from safety, but you get, when it's safety, then it's also happiness comes. Then there is another translation, by this truth, may there be well-being. So that's another translation. And another translation, the fourth translation, may you be safe. May you be safe. Now that's how it's been translated. The point is, this is a very, now I'm speaking of very, very simple terminology here, etena satchena suati hotu. But these words have been translated in 4 different ways. But when it comes to the Dhamma itself, you can imagine, the thing is the knowledge of the Dhamma, the knowledge of Pali, then the knowledge, not only because if you in the context, all those things, there could be, so it's always good when you study the Dhamma to get to as to manage and to understand really what was in the mind of the Buddha. As I said, in the Buddha's dispensation, there is only one final goal the Buddha had, and that's liberation of the people. There is nothing else. So how is it? So this is something that I just want to portion. I thought it would be useful for those who are listening to the service of the Buddha. It's a very old organization and very with very important motto. So this is something that we have to be very careful of. You just take one translation and try to, with the translation, if you try to interpret the Dhamma through a translation, there could be certain changes, certain problems could arise. So it's always careful, always be careful about that, and we should note this. Now, in the context of what was in Vesali at the time, now this particular sutta was delivered at Vesali. If you know the context of the reciting of this sutta, and there was a famine there. So because of the famine, there were so many who died, and there was a plague. Because the plague, it happens during that time, there was no cremation, and there is the charnel ground, and possibly there are so many. Now, you can imagine if there are, say, two persons in a family, and one person dies, or both of them get this plague and they die, there's no one to carry the corpse. It'll be there. And the many diseases could arise. So this has happened even, say, recently when you think of COVID-19 also, there's the circumstances are there. And then even now these days with dengue and also other types of chikungunya and all types of things, So the point, it spreads. And these are second, one of the problems that they had, people of Vesali. First there was famine, there was a drought, and because of that famine, no food. Now these days there is famine in Gaza, I found. So, and after that, with that, there is so much of the disease was there. And then the evil spirits. The spirits. So the Petaloka. So there are the Petaloka and there are the spirits who have come, and over there, the point is that that's something that you have, can you see Peta? But I have not asked those questions are there, but this is what is mentioned. So there is three types of fear at that time. And then when they discussed the Lichavis, the Lichavis, it's confederation, about 700, they got together and found out what are we to do with this. So they went in, and they decided, okay, after much discussion, they decided to invite the Buddha to Vesal. And by that, and that's the only thing that they could do. There was no other thing that they were unable to do anything. And because of these three fears, and especially the spirits who are there, because the dead corpses. So they sent emissaries to King Bimbisari. The Buddha at that particular time was in Rajagaha. And Rajagaha, they sent emissaries and they they mentioned this to the king, and with Bimbisara, then they also met the Buddha, and the Buddha agreed to visit. So there was so much of preparations that was there. It's mentioned in the commentaries, and then it was he went the Buddha. It was by boat from where Rajagaha along the river to Vesal. So some of the descriptions are there. And then as the Buddha arrived, there was a torrential rain. Now this is something that even now we believe in Sri Lanka, when at certain times when there is a drought in this country, the sacred predicts are taken and there's rain. And also it's mentioned in the Mahabharata once where there was so much of, there was a drought, and the one Messiah, one of the kings, he started meditating and invoked the blessings. And it is mentioned in the Mahabharata that there was rain that came. So these things happen. The thing is that it's just we see only this human world. We see the animal world, but we don't see any other world. We suppose that there is another world, but we don't see them. We can't, but certainly it's possible to see them. But even now, it's possible if you develop your mind. So this happened. So when the Buddha arrived with 500, so you can imagine. So it could have been something, not one boat, several boats along the Ganges going up to Vesali. And as they approached, so this happened. And it's mentioned that the corpses and others were washed away to the Ganges, to the river. So then when this happened, the rain, so there's no, as there's no drought, there is rain. So it could be that that question is no more, so for the time being, so they could fast. And then also the second year, fire, the is what we call the plague also was not there, they were able to get down. But the important thing at that time was the spirits. So of the three types of fear that was there, the two was with the coming of the Buddha, there was possible some kind of relay, not immediately, there was some kind of reduction or the fears were not there with the rains coming, but the spirits were there. So this is the problem that was there. So this is something that we have to remember in studying the Ratana Sutta. The Ratana Sutta is not like the other Sutta or Karanima Sutta, which is to the disciples. Many other suttas in the Tipitaka is for people who have come, or even for like Mangala Sutta comes and discusses something, Parabha also got. But here is to unseen spirits. So this is something that we have to, the difference between this sutta and other sutta is, the Ratana Sutta, the audience was the devas or the spirits. So is it all right? And something happened there. And then, so let's see how we started the Buddha. So the first verse, it says, Yani the Bhutani Samagatani Bhumani Vayani Bhartari. So the Bhumani is the terrestrial. Akasa is Bhumani Vayani, and the other is celestial. So he was addressing, in this particular, the first verse itself, he was addressing the terrestrial and the celestial beings who were assembled. He called them. He said, assembled, who are assembled here. And then it's quite interesting. When I studied this, how did the Buddha approach this problem? In that sutta, in that verse itself, he says, Yani the Bhutani Samagatani, whatever beings assembled here. So there were the Buddha was addressing those beings who assembled there. Whether on earth or in the sky, that means whether it's terrestrial or celestial, they are gathered here. Sabbeva Bhuta Sumana Bhavantu. What the Buddha did first was to spread loving kindness to them. So that's the thing is, he was not opposing, he was, so let them all, Sabbeva Bhuta, let all these beings, Sumana Bhavantu, let there be happiness. Let them be, let them have happy minds. So, so it's a very interesting approach. So here there was a question and a problem, and what the Buddha said, yes, now people, you are assembled here. I have much, yeah, I spread my loving kindness to you. Sumana Bhavantu. Atopi Sakkacha Bhavan. It say Atopi Sakkacha Sunantu Bhasta. And Sakkacha, that's this interesting word, Sakkacha Sapasa. Now listen to me intently, carefully. Now here the Buddha is appealing to the terrestrial and celestial beings. Please, to whom I now spread my loving kindness. I'm not opposing you, but loving kindness. And please listen to me carefully. So that's a very interesting approach. Now, even in problems that you have in life today, not with animosity, but with loving kindness. That approach is very important, very interesting. So when I studied this sutta, it's very, this approach will, even if there are conflicts, now there is a conflict in the sense, in the Ratana Sutta, there is a conflict, that means there were the Petas who were there. And now the Petas, we have to get rid of the Petas. And and they want the appeal into the celestial, this thing. Come, please help. And the second verse, he says, is very interesting again. Say, Tasmai Bhutani Sameta Sabbe Mettang Karota Manusya Pada. Mettang Karota Manusya Pachaya. Please have metta, loving kindness on the people. Manusya Pachaya. So please have confidence. No, please have loving kindness to them. And then why? They bring offerings to you daily. And because of that, please help them. So that's another mettang karota, tasmaini rakkata apamata, protect them. So here again, the type, even now, when you say offerings now in Thailand, when you have, in persons who have given to Thailand, it's different. They have a particular place outside where they give actual offerings are made. But in Sri Lanka, we offer merit. After every dana, after every dharma desana, after every good deed of ours, what we do? Akasattata bhummatta devanaga mahiddhika. And with that, or ettavata being, what we do is we offer merit. And merit, and that's more important than really other types of offerings like fruit or something like that. In the Hindu gods or something, what we do is we give offerings. This is a different type of offering. But here we offer merit. And that's the offering that we have. We offer merit. So these are traditions that have been there right from there, from time of the Buddha and even before that they offer. So, and even here we offer merit. So it's a very interesting approach I see in the Ratana Sutta. And then it says the asseveration of truth. The Buddha in this particular Ratana Sutta is an asseveration of truth, Satyakriya. In Sinhala we call it Satyakriya. So asseveration of truth. The Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, they are gems. They are gems. They are precious gems. And by their blessing, let there be safety, let there be well-being, or let there be happiness. So it's asseveration. So here again, it's important that the approach, the Ratana Sutta, is very different from the other types of suttas. It's something, and as it is mentioned in the commentaries, the biggest commentaries of at that time itself, that the words of the Buddha reverberated in the 140 Lopadhatu, that is the total universe. So this is Sutta uttered by the Buddha, and it was mentioned, and it was listened, or it was something that the entire universe, to say, as it's, because it's not specifically to people, someone who has come there, but he says, come, listen to me carefully, Sakkacha. And he uttered these words of why the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha are precious gems, precious gems. So this is something, and the Buddha, if there was something opposed to that, then that's why the last word, what I started this particular discourse with the last words. So, and those words, were by Sakka, the king, the God of say the king of gods. So the Sakka mentioned that those words, Yani the Bhutani Samagatani, Bhumvani Vayani Talike. Tathagatang Deva Manusa Puchta. Deva Manusa, the Devas and the Manusa offer, Deva Manusa, what do you call it? Tathagatang Deva Manusa Pujitam, you are worshipped by you. And Buddha Namasami Swati. So that's the last three verses were not by human beings, not by the Buddha, but it was by the Devas or Sakris. It's all this commentary. It was by Sakra. So the Sakra, the pure gods. So here is quite a different thing. So we have the first two verses where the Buddha first invites everyone to come and listen to him very carefully, and then gives a reason as to why you are being offered every day. There are offerings that are made daily, day and night to you. Why not have metta, manusapajaya, have confidence, spread your metta, loving kindness to all the people over here. So that's why it's a very powerful sutta, which is very different from another sutta where its discourse is to make a person liberation. But those qualities are there in the Buddha Dhamma and Sangha. So now let's take, in the sense, some view of what is of the Ratana Sutta itself. We will discuss something of the verses. So in the Ratana Sutta, there are 17 verses. And the 17 verses, first two verses, as I mentioned, they are invoking, asking the gods and others to come and protect them, listen to them, because it's your obligation. You are being offered day and night. Been offered here in Sri Lanka. We offer merit every time. From how many homes, from how many temples? That offering be to the celestial beings. So there is an obligation on their part to come and protect, and that's what the Buddha said. And then the first two verses and the first three verses, so when you take the 5 away, then there are 12 more verses, 17 minus 5. So of them, 3 is devoted to the Buddha. 3 of the verses as to why the Buddha is a gem, a priceless gem. Etena sat panika. And then there are 2 verses of the Dhamma, and the largest number of verses, 7 verses on the Sangha. So that's how it is. It's so when you take analytical or the sutta itself, it's something like how we analyze the suttas, the content of the suttas. So it's a statistical analysis of the sutta. So that means first there is the 2 invoking, inviting the people, asking, and then telling the celestial and terrestrial beings, please protect them, because there are people who are coming and offering you and every day. And then last 3 verses by Sakka himself, And that's an acceptance, because when you say yeah, the same words, yani the Bhutan, so this, the Lokadhatu, according to this sutta, everybody, if there is, if when the Buddha says, I am a gem, they could oppose that. Since somebody says that. But here, by the Sangha endorses on behalf of the celestial beings, the terrestrial beings, the Sangha endorses the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha are priceless gems. And that's interesting. And now let's go up somewhat depth into some of the verses. The first, yeah, the third verse, so that's the first, something. No.
Zoom here is very good.
You want me to hold that out? Is it?
No, shall I hold it?
No, no. Come.
Okay.
So now let's discuss the content of some of these verses. The first verse, the reason for the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha be called jewels or gems. Now, in verse 3, it is said that although there are precious jewels, the translation, there are precious jewels here and also in the heavens, there is no jewel more precious than the Buddha. Now, this is a claim of the Buddha. Young Buddha said, no, I think that particular verse, what's the verse? Let's see. Yes. Yang kinchivitang idabahurang va sakye suvayang ratanam panita. Nano samang atti tatagopeda. There is nothing, no precious jewel that is comparative, that we can compare to this, compare with, to the jewel, the precious jewel of the Buddha. Now, when you think of it, so Buddha makes a claim like that. Now, if you discuss, there is something earlier, the Dana, Sapta Dana, the seven, they are also the Buddha said, yes, there is so much of wealth in this country. I don't deny that there is no friend. But this type is, and here also there is no denying the fact that there is wealth. But why is the Buddha supreme? Because all those other types of wealth that we have is ephemeral, is anicca. That we can't possess it for all. When we die, we give up those things, all those things. But here is a precious jewel that will give you, that give a person. So the Buddha claims that. So this is the difference between the jewel of the Buddha, and which is all time now, is 2,600 and so many years after enlightenment or after Parinibbana, 2000, still the jewel is there. The Buddha gem, and it's as a gem, a precious gem. So where are the other types of gems? Say, you can remember Alexander the Great. He wanted his hands to be put out of, and says, I have not taken anything now. All the countries have this thing, but nothing. It's the same thing. But all the wealth you have, you possess, that you give up. But if you get the Buddha as a gem, precious gem, it's there even now. So this is why this is something that we have to, over history. Now the Buddha mentioned these 2000, I do not know after what was this, I couldn't find that. But the thing is, even now it's precious. Buddhang saranang gacchami, we say that. And say Theruvan Saranai. We bless others with that. So that's because it's a treasure that is there. And then the second verse, I'm not taking the sequence, but of the Buddha, there's then in it comes after later on, in what's that, in verse 12. Verse 12, it says a very interesting, beautiful, I think, uh, beautiful verse. And that's where about the blossoming flowers that's blossoming, in the crest, in the thickets. So I was thinking, when I think of that down Buller's Road, during a particular time, you have the flamboyant and the beautiful, beautiful flowers at the crest. So these are things that we can see to ourselves. And what is that blossoming? The blossoming is because of Nibbana. The people, the ultimate, in single we say Malpalga. Malpalga, no, Malpalga, that's the final goal, The final goal is Nibbana, and there are so many who have achieved Nibbana. It's not something impossible. Yes, it's something who has achieved that. And it's that. And how is that? It's possible because of the Buddha, because of omniscience, and because he was able to explain the Dhamma. So that's why the Buddha and the people, so many, has reached that stage. And it's like the blossoming of flowers you have in your gardens. How happy you are when you see the flowers in your garden. But in the same way, if a person is pursuing this life, and if you reach that final goal, how happy it is. And why is it? How was it possible? In your garden is maybe the husband or some other big garden. But here is a permanent thing, sister, is because of the Buddha. And in that, he says, because of that is a jewel. And also, again, you say, Varo, Varanyo, Varado, Varaharo, Anuttaro, Dhamma, Varangare. So, just it's also a very beautiful verse. Varo, Varanyo, Varado. The Varo means he's the excellent, omniscient. The Buddha was the omniscient because he again attained that omniscience under the Bodhi tree. So that's why he's Varo. Varo, Varanyo. And he is a knower of the excellence. He's a knower because he himself has attained Nibbana. It's not that he is telling others do it, but he has reached that stage. And after reaching that stage only, so Varo, Varanyo, Varado, Varaharo is a giver and bringer of excellence. So all these things show that here the Buddha, not only after 45 years, what do they do? He gave the Dhamma, an excellent practice. The practice, that's Arya Tangamagga, the practice that will take you to that goal of Nibbana. So that's the Buddha. That's the greatness of the Buddha. And that's why it's a gem. So himself, although I take it here, it's consequentially, you can understand why it's come as 12 and 13, but it's correct there rather than, but I'm getting these three at the same time. And then the Dhamma, when you speak of the Dhamma, Kayang Viragam, Amatam Pandita, all the defilements are over. So is the sort of Nibbana, the Dhamma, the final goal of the Dhamma is to reach Nibbana. And in that particular verse, there is a description of the Dhamma. Hayang Viragam, passionlessness. Hayang Viragam, Amatan, deathless. There is no more life for deathless. Hayang Viragam, Amatam, Panita, it's sublime. So like that, that aspect is said of the Dhamma, because the goal of Dhamma is the attainment of Nibbana. The goal of Dhamma, that means, and then in the other one, we say, the next verse is about the practice. Young Buddha said to us, I think what's the other verse is, let's see. Yam Buddha said to Parivannayi Suchin, Samadhimanam Tarikanyamahu. Now, here it's a very interesting term that the Buddha uses. There is a Samadhi with Anantarika, that means Anantarika Samadhi. Now, we all know of what Anantarika Dhamma is. Anantara Karani, that means at the next birth itself. So here it is a samadhi, you have reached the samadhi, which immediately, which helps to get your vipassana, the final goal of Nibbana. So this interpretation is given because this has been given several interpretations because Anantarika Samadhi is something that is, we have, say, Magga and Phalajnana. So Sotapatti, Magga, so that we will discuss the next Sangha. But the point is it's immediate. So Magga and Phala, the Kshanika, the momentarily, it's something. And also, but the important thing, when the Buddha said, I don't see these incomparable, because during his, when he was searching for the omniscience, he went to Uddakarama Alarakalam Uddakarama, and he reached the highest level of jhana. Nevasanya nasanyayatana. It stopped. That is a jhana, or perception or non-perception. So he reached the highest state. The Buddha was able, as a bodhisattva, before attaining omniscience, he was able to achieve the final, highest level. And even now there are people who can develop your samadhi. But that samadhi doesn't lead to deathlessness. You can develop your samadhi. The only samadhi, the higher the concentration that you have, that could lead is the Buddha. Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. So these are the Tisika, the three trainings. So the first training is Sila, you have to develop yourself, the Sila. And after Sila, you have to develop your Samadhi. And with that Samadhi, Sila and Samadhi, then you can develop further and get that final goal of Nibbana. So this is a graduated process. But the thing is, and that Samadhi is different. And that's why the Buddha says, there is nothing comparable to this Samadhi. There is nothing comparable to this Samadhi. The words are, yes, Samadhi. Samadhina Thera samona vichyati. I don't see any other Samadhi. No other concentration I see that will lead you to a state of amata, Hayam Viraga Amata, that state of Nibbana. So it's that's why the Dhamma is a jewel. Because see the Dhamma and the practice, which is described in this tool, that leads to a state of Nibbana or state of deathlessness, or that state that we are all thinking of, the Summa Bodhu of Buddhism. So we have now dealt with the 3 verses regarding the Buddha, and then the 2 verses in regard to the Dhamma. And then the largest, the Dhamma, is the Sangha. The Sangha, there are 7 verses. And the first verse, you may remember, Ye Puggala Atta Satampa Chattari Etari, all this, you know this. So here is a sort of an introduction of what is the Sangha here. The Sangha that is spoken here of are 8, and that could be paired into 4. So who are they? There are people who are Sotapatti Magga, Sotapatti Phala. Sakadagami Magga, that's one Shritada, and then Pada immediately. Then also after that Anagami Magga, there are people with Anagami Magga, and there is Anagami Pada, and Arahat Pada, and Arahat finally. So these are the 8 types, which could be paired into 4. Paired to 4, Samadhi, Magga, Samadhi Pada. And this is something, as I mentioned earlier, it's instantaneous. That means antarika. That means the next moment you achieve once you achieve, when you fulfill the reasons, the fulfill of the conditions that's necessary for a person to achieve the pada, to get to the pada immediately from your Magga Jnana, Magga moment, Chitta moment, you get your Phala moment. So there is no separation in these two. And then, so this is, he described this and he said, to this Sangha, if anybody gives donation, they give something, offering to them, Phala is of great blessings to you. It's because of that particular greatness, and that's why it's a jewel. The jewel, Sangha as a jewel, is because of this. There are people who are on the path, on the different types of the 8 types, who could be in 4 pairs, and if you give them something, it's of great benefit to you because they are something, and that's what he mentioned in that. And then from there, the Buddha is very interested. After that, you get this ye suppayutta manasa dalhena. Manasa dalhena. That with your firm, manasa dalhena is firm. You're firm, that means you can't get this without effort. If you want to reach this state, it's an effort that is required. So it's with a firm mind you work on, because there's so many deviations. Anybody, all of us. Now the Buddha started, the meditation started here. So with the meditation, you see how you will see your own monkey mind. As Venerable Ajahn says, the monkey mind is Ajahn, I think what Brown mentions about the monkey mind. So that it's very difficult to keep your mind in one point. So ekaggata is different. So the point is here, again, he says, you achieve this. There are people, the Sangha are people who have achieved. So during the time of the Buddha, there are all those who have achieved, who have reached Nibbana, are those who have achieved, who have reached the Nibbana, state of Nibbana. They are also called, not they are Buddha, but not Sammasa Buddha, not Pacheka Buddha, but following that they are Buddha because they are the same Nibbana that the Buddha realized was also realized by everyone by following this path. So, and that he says, in that particular verse, there's a very interesting word, Ladda Buddha Nibbuting Bunjamana. And you achieve that and you can enjoy that as you please. And you get that free. The interesting thing is that you get that highest bliss free. Radha Buddha. Now, how much of effort that is required by people now to think of this happiness that you bring? Happiness in life, it is so many things. But with all those so many things, it's not only effort, but you have to spend so much of money. Without money, without spending money, you won't come. If you want something that will make you happy, you buy that, and that's money. So that type of happiness is not permanent. After some time, you will see that something happens to that particular thing, and then you say, what happens? So many things. Floods may take it, anything that would happen. But here, the bliss that you have got is permanent. Nibbana, once you achieve Nibbana, you can't fall back from that. You can fall back from Samadhi. You can fall back. You can develop all your clairvoyant and all those indi, the pancha. But those things can fall back from that. When you see something, hear something, or something like that, concentration, it happens. And it's mentioned in the commentaries, instances like that. But here is something that you have achieved free. Buddha says, free. And then as you get it free, somebody possibly didn't care for it. But yeah, that is something urge people. You can't get this. Why don't you achieve this bliss and enjoy that? Because say even the Buddha, he enjoyed that from time to time. He enjoyed the sukha viharana. Enjoy that particular the calmness that is there. You're not disturbed by what's happening in the outside world, and you get into your own world and undisturbed. So it's a putta sadokadame chittang yasana kampati. A person who has reached the Nibbana state of Nibbana is not is not afflicted by these the Lokoda. So that is why then you are happy. And that all that you can happy that reach without any payment. Right? You have to make an effort, but no money is required for that to achieve that. So to that urges people, why don't you do this? It's urge, you can possible. And the Buddha said, the Karani means it's possible for him, Sakko. That's why he started by saying Sakko. It's possible. No, it's not impossible. It's possible. So as it's possible, why don't you go on? So here, the first, after mentioning about the type of the Sangha, so Sangha, the 8 types, and by giving, then the Buddha, the next one, Ye Suppayutta Manasa Dalhena, with Manasa Dalhena, with effort, Dalhena. And that is something that you can achieve free and can enjoy that. And from there, then it goes another step, Ye Suppayutta. Then they say, yes, such a person is like in the keel, those things, that's a post that is grounded. So with the 4 winds coming, it doesn't get shaken up. So that's there. It's even during the time of the Buddha, there is in the keel is there at the entrance of a city. So he compares this to the in the keel. In the 4 winds, it does in the same way as a person who has reached Nibbana. You are not swerved by anything outside. You can't. You are like that in the keel. So that's another quality of the Sangha. And that's why it's called sublime bliss. It's apanita, platanam panita. And that panita is sublime. And because of that, with that effort, again, the report is there. With that, may there be safety. May there be with this truth. Then after that, the Buddha says, all right, if you become you enter, now you go to, first he discussed the people who have reached Nibbana. That's in the 2 verses. And then goes back to a person who is an entry. You have the 4 types of the Sotapatti. The Sotapatti, the Buddha says upon this, that that's the there is no, only you can live for 7 lives. Yariya Satchani Vibhavanti Gambhira Panyena Sudesitani. Kinchapite honti busapamata nate bhavang attamang adya. There is no 8th birth. There is only 7. And after 7, that's a maximum. The maximum that person, if you become a Sotapanna, the maximum that you can get born in this life is 7. But it's possible in some in the next life itself they attain. So the next life, then there is the Polang, there are different types of that's mentioned. But the interesting thing, the te bhavang attamangadi, before that, you have a particular word, whatever you negligence there is I think that's an interesting term that was the mentions. Whatever negligence you have, whatever negligence. Now say, what comes to your mind? How much negligence you have, you are negligent. So this could be in several ways. So when you say negligence, we think from our point of view, the negligence, so nothing could happen there. You go to this shop and this, then do everything. But thing is, then he immediately after that, it's urging again. Whatever, you negligence, you'll have only 7 births. And so it's a sort of a curiosity, a question mark that comes to your mind. What is this type of negligence? Because, say I'm surmising. The thing is, if a person has 7 births, if a person has attained Sotapatti in the earlier birth, so that person could be born again in this world to further his endeavors, but he may not know. I don't know. Nobody says you're a Sotapanna, but you can. There's other sad. You can find your criteria is there of whether you have, and that's what he mentioned. So the criteria is in the next verse. Come, Saha Vassa Dasana Sampadaya Tayasu Dhamma Jaita Bhavat. The Sotapanna has got rid of 3 fetters. So as he has got rid of 3 fetters, Sakkaya Ditti, Vichikicha, and Silabdha Paramasa. Now, and there is Achala Saddha, that means that's the important thing. The Saddha, that is your faith, your confidence in the Buddha, is unshaken. Now, here, now we see this. Now, that's and you can question yourself and find out, is my confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha achala, unshakable? Or is it that, sometimes I may go to this place, the other place, some other place, because, to get some kind of salvation. But here, for your liberation, for your salvation, for your endless, you have that saddha. And it's important. So the Buddha, immediately after saying that you can do anything, here it is. 3 fetters are out in a Sotapanna. So 3 fetters are out because of that. And then you say, Tasu Dhamma Jahita Bhavanti Sakkaya Ditti Vichikicha Sila Prakava. Then it's complete that they say further, it says, what's it? I've forgotten that verse. Let's see. And it continues by saying, let's see, the last words of that particular sutta, of that particular verse, sorry. Yes. Chatuha paye hicha vippa buddho chachavithanani abhabhukaja. Now, that such a person is not capable of doing certain things, actions. Now, the thing is, what actions that he's incapable of are matricide, patricide, like that anantare karma. So the thing is, although you are free to do anything, because that you have reached that, you are now a seeker or a seeker, still who are training in the training of Sotapanna. There are certain things you can't do. It's incapable of him to do. So what is he incapable of? He's incapable of matricide. He's incapable of patricide. He's incapable of killing arahant or something. Although something, it's not possible for him to do that. So a person, ordinary person may do certain things, but a person with Sotapanna will not do that. And then continues later on, this next verse, it is said, the other thing, that even if he does something mentally, physically, or vocally, if he does something wrong, he'll immediately reveal that. He can't hide that. Now, see, normally we hide many things in our life. We hide, you always like to be good. But the thing is, mentally you're not. You may have so many other. So there he says, Kinchapi so kammam karoti papakam, kayana papakam, kayana vacha, uta chetasa. So that means whatever, if you do any kind of wrong, A person who is on the path, who has reached a Sotapanna, he cannot hide it. He would go and tell to his teacher or someone and say, I'm sorry, I did this. And will not keep it to himself or herself. It is openness. He is transparent. He is not something that he wants to, a person on that who is on the path. He always will try to tell another person or a friend, a kalyana mitra, this is happening. Why? And then, and asseveration, thinking or determination not to do that again. That's the most important thing. Where in Buddhism, when you do some of the Vinaya karma, there also, Parajika is different. But if the other things, there are certain ways that you can, after doing that, if there's something happens, and then you have to, there is a ways of expiation, how to do that. So according to the Dhamma, according to the Vinaya rules, there are certain things that you can do. If you take suttas like, so I think there was a recently a sutta on what he called Itapasantana Sutta. Now, how to get rid of those things? Now, those suttas or discourse are there. The Sangha who are now on the path, they will use these methods that have been told by the Buddha in the other suttas and try to get rid of those qualities of bad things that you have. It's with an effort. It will not just happen that way. Effort is required and is mentioned as in that Vitapusantana. You can even with your firmness, with teeth, get rid of that. Try to fight within to get rid of that particular thing. So these are things that's happening. So here it is. So the Buddha, although he says, first he urges and then say, yes, you can do anything, negligence, but the negligence you are, as a Sotapanna, you cannot do that. And even some of the things, if you do, you can't keep it to yourself. You have to tell another and expire to yourself, I'm sorry, this happened to me. I will never do it, and I'll try my best to do it like that, What is the matter? So this is what it is, and at that moment, the Buddha and again the Sutta, the two verses come after that, and then the final verse. Kinang Puranang Navang Natti Sambhavam Viratti Chitta Ayati Kevasve. It's quite interesting. Kinang Puranang, he has all the past karma is no more when you become an arhat. It's ahosi karma. The conditions are not there for the past wrong karma to be experienced. It's over. And now natti sambhava, and you can't create new karma also. It's kriya, because karma here is to lower those and more. As you have got rid of these things, lower those and more, when you attain nibbana, it's kiriya chitta and it's not karma. It's because of that. And then, so there is no accumulation of new karma for you to get born again. Natti sambhava. Viratta chitta and chitta. And chitta, there is no clinging to get birth. Now when you say tanha samad, that's the clinging to birth. So the three type of tanha. They say bhavatanha, vibhavatanha. So those tanha is there. So there is no bhavatanha. There is no tanha to get born again. The seed is no more. The seed is not there. For a tree to grow, there should be a seed. And in Chanda, that seed is no more. In a Nibbana, person who has reached Nibbana, the seed is not there as mentioned in that particular verse. And then what happens? You know that the Nibbana, although now I see that any person dying and you have may he attain Nibbana. So actually try to attain Nibbana, not in the other life, try to attain Nibbana in this life as much as possible. That is what is required. And then what happens? It's very beautiful simile. He says, like a flame that goes off. You have a flame in front of me. I blow it out. Now, where's the flame gone? So in the same way, a person, Buddha says, a person who has reached Nibbana, the person who has reached Nibbana, he's done, he's no more, he's at his death. Where has he gone? So that's the ending of this particular interest in Ratana Sutta. So that's the aim, to attain Nibbana. And when you attain Nibbana, that it happens, there is no being, there is nothing. You just like the flame. And this is something that urge you, I think the Ratana Sutra will urge you to go forward. And I think the motto of this organization is Arahant Hesan. Arahant Hesan, nothing else. So if it's Arahant Hesan, if this discourse of mine helped you in any way to urge you to go forward, that's what it requires. That's when it to me comes that way. And this Arahant, remember this particular motto, Arahant Hesan. And that's something that I think we should have always in mind. Don't wait for the next life. You've got an opportunity, grand opportunity, by being in a country that tries to lift it up. Don't think of the outside world. You have to think of oneself. This opportunity is there, and make best of this opportunity. And that's what is required. So the Ratana Sutta that was preached by the Buddha, not to the humans, but to the devas, the terrestrial, and the celestial devas, asking them, and as a ration of the truth on Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, the qualities that were there. And we always consider them as gems, the precious gems, because these gems, the three gems, will always be with you. And that's what's important. So thank you very much. So I think I've spoken enough.